Hello, happy Tuesday. Just me again today. So I wanted to have a chat about what's your why? Really getting serious about what is your why. So if you've been here for a little while, you will know that I always talk about why, or not even talk about why. I love to ask questions and I like to be clear on things. And I like to look at what else is there from probably from a view of curiosity more than anything. I like to know the details. I like to find out how it's going to be done, why it's going to be done, why it's important to you. Why are you going to spend energy on whatever you're creating? And I find it fascinating. And I find it so super helpful when you're just like feeling overwhelmed, or sometimes you just don't know the next step. Whereas if you know your why, which I call your North Star, then you've got somewhere to come back to, somewhere to focus on. And when you know your why and what you want, like what you truly want, then you know the next steps. The decisions and the choices are easier because you know. So, yeah, I am for just the success of what you're creating. And the success is your success. So in 2022, I did one story on Instagram and it was for VA services. So I've been an admin and secretary and personal assistant, all of that for like 22 years, I think. So I put a call out for VA work and my schedule was filled within a couple of days. Keep in mind, my schedule at the time, I was still working part-time shift work at the hospital, doing photography, and I was offering VA services. The VA services were, I think, it was 10 hours a week. Anyway, the VA services were filled by women photographers, and I quickly learnt that the women that had signed up, some of the women that had signed up, they actually didn't need a VA. They needed someone to talk to. They needed someone to brainstorm with. They need someone to ask them questions. They needed someone to just be in confident ideas about their thoughts, about getting clarity on what they're creating and what their next steps were. And they came to me thinking that they needed VA work because they felt so overwhelmed because they didn't know their why. They knew that's not true. They did know that they knew what they wanted. So for example, say someone wanted 6 figures. So they're like, okay, I want to make 6 figures. That was it. That was the goal. There was no detail. They hadn't looked at the detail. They hadn't thought of how to sustainably build that. It's not always going to be exciting and you're not always going to want to do it. And so the motivation was going and it was feeling really hard because they didn't know their why. They didn't know that place to come back to regroup and then take the next aligned step for what their why is. So my VA services, probably over 6 months or so, turned into mentoring because, yeah, like I said, women, they didn't need at that stage a VA. I definitely had some clients that I was a VA for, and that was fabulous and I loved it. And yeah, I kept up my VA work as well as mentoring. So I kind of added another thing to my workload, which was great, and I loved it. And I'm passionate about it because when you know your why, you then take very seriously what you're wanting to create. And that is a very conscious decision. And it means you take yourself seriously. It means you have to be honest with yourself. You build trust in yourself, because if you say you're going to do something, then you do it. And if you don't, you don't. But you're not going to reach your goal. You're not going to reach your why. And so I am passionate about it because I truly think and feel building a business and taking it seriously, it's huge personal development. It shows what we can do. It shows what we're capable of. It shows our creativity. It shows that we're resourceful. Not only are we making ourselves proud, even if it's really hard and it's really awful sometimes. There's so many things that you can feel in your business and when you're creating your business. But it's not like that all the time. Like there's a page in my book, I should say, and it's some days are really hard and some days just aren't. And that's the same in business. Some days are really hard and some days aren't. And when we know our why, those harder days aren't as hard because we know what our next step is. We know what we value. We know our values. And we can take the step or the action that lines up with what we need to do. And it's being really honest with ourselves. It's really knowing where we are at this moment and understanding it and moving from the place of exactly where we are right now. And that is a really interesting place. It's a place of curiosity and creativity because we have in mind what our why is and we can feel that gap of, well, this is where I am now and this is where I want to be. And so we can, with curiosity and creativity, close that gap or bridge that gap. And that is exciting because women, we work in cycles. There will be times of we're really productive. We get lots of things done. We are just pumping out the work. And then there'll be times of rest and there'll be times of play. And when we've been very conditioned to work, get everything done. We always need to be on. We always need to be working. But that's not how women naturally are. And so when we are in that play and rest period, we might take 20 steps or we might get a whole heap done in our work period, but then we can feel lazy or we can feel guilty because in our play and rest time, we might only get 2 things done. But that's perfect because our business isn't our whole life. And when we take care of ourselves in every way, in mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, that does help our business because we're healthy going into it. We've got energy, we've got ideas. We go in wanting to take the next action step that we need to take. And so when I talk to women about their why, it's really simple questions of what do you want? What do you want to experience in your business? What do you want to experience in your life? Cut down my hours. My goal, my why, was to be at home and have dinner with my family every night. And that might sound very simple, but our businesses and our goals can be that simple. In our family, we have dinner at the table every night. We have no phones at the table. Scott and the boys and myself at the table. We catch up, we connect, we have a conversation over dinner. And with the shift work that I did, I was working 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. So I was out of the house 4 nights a week during dinner. And, sitting in the tea room by yourself. Some nights I would get really low because I would just want to be at home. And that was my why. That was very motivational. That's what I wanted. That was my want. What do you want? That's what I wanted. And so for me to be able to be at dinner with my family, I had to build my business. I had to show up. I had to be very clear on that why. I had to really look at how can I be of service. And so when I had started, and it was the VA services that I was offering, that was perfect, because that is my specialty. I have been in admin for 25 years. And so when it then shifted to, okay, the VA sessions, they were still booking, but they were very much conversations. They were very much conversations with women who wanted to be clear. And so the conversations in those sessions, they would start out with, how can I help you? And once we kind of dug through what the ladies thought they needed help with, and then once we really dug into, okay, so why are you doing it that way? Or why do you think that is the next step? And then we followed that on with, what do you want? Literally, what do you want? And it was so, I just love the transformation, the change, the connection that happens in a space where women are in conversation about a common or about a shared goal. So in those conversations, the photographer would show up, we would have a chat, and we're both there for her success. And so motivational and so connected to her dreams. And it's such a beautiful thing to see the transformation of arriving at the conversation, feeling insecure, knowing why, or maybe not knowing why, but definitely researching herself, knowing why she's, taking on a business or taking on a project. Or sometimes we had a plan, we did devise a plan of, okay, so this is the why. And we would figure out the next steps in marketing and why she wanted to market that way and how it helps her business and how it helps, each action step towards the goal of her why. And these questions and conversations can be really uncomfortable because you have to get to know yourself. You have to get to know your values, your boundaries. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That can be quite, scary and confronting to look at yourself and be very honest in what do you want? Because when you're thinking of starting a business or a project, it's not just affecting you, it affects your whole life. It filters into your whole life. So once you've made that decision, other things need to shift and move and expand and contract around that decision. And you have to know why you're doing it to be sustainable. And if you really hold it dear and you're willing to devote and commit to what you say you want to do. Because it's very easy to say, oh yes, I want to do this, but then never take the action steps. Or yes, I want to do this, but I don't want to show up, or I don't want to market, or I don't want to talk about it, or I just want to kind of put an occasional post up, or I'll let people know when I'm ready. That's more stressful. That is more stressful and more overwhelming than if you actually make the decision to take it seriously, what you want, and then you have your action steps and you build it sustainably. Because when you go in and you half make a decision and then you don't want to show up, but you do want to have a successful business, you're using all of your energy and all of your amazing, creativity and you're in making excuses for not doing the work. Whereas if you make the decision and you commit to yourself and you commit to your business or your project, and then even if you go, okay, so this week I have, for example, 10 hours, and you spend 10 hours doing those aligned action steps and really put quality time into your business, then you're going to reach your goal and your why in the way that is sustainable for you and that makes you proud, over half deciding what you want to do, occasionally taking a step, and then you use up all of your energy in overwhelm, in guilt, in this sort of lost in between space of, I don't know what I need to do. That is why knowing your why, what you want, and having that North Star is so important. And one thing I've discovered is creating a business, creating projects is really personal development, because you have to get to know yourself. You have to know what you value, how far you're willing to go. It is ups and downs. It is light and shadow. When you are uncomfortable, it's easy to hide. When you're not getting huge praise and feels like no one's paying attention, it is so easy not to show up. But it's a long game. And if you know your why and you know your goal, then those low moments, those moments of questioning yourself, of feeling not seen and not heard, when you know your why and what you want, then you get really curious. Okay, so what else can I do? What other avenues can I take? And working from a place of curiosity, it's so interesting because you find out so much about yourself, about your creativity, by asking yourself continual questions. Questions of like, okay, so what is another way of doing that? How can I show up in another way? And maybe the other way is you've been talking on social media, you've been putting out all of these posts and it's more quantity, and nothing's happening. And instead, you look at that and you analyze what you've been doing and that it's not working for you, then perhaps you double down on your photography practice and you get really proud of the artwork and the photos that you're taking. And it might not be quantity, but it'll be quality. And then you have those wins of sharing that and being really proud of the quality work. And it's those types of things that when you know your why and you can come back to your North Star, as I call it, it gives you more options. And it's like a game of like, okay, what's the next move? Where can I go to next? How much deeper can I go? And it's not about the end result. It's the woman that you're becoming along the way. And it's like with everything. I'm forever saying women are the ultimate creators. We create homes and children and families and relationships and motherhood, and we create photos and we create writing and everything meals, everything we do, we create. And so to create your business, it's the same. We get to choose how we create it. We get to choose how we create our art, our life, and our business. Every single decision is ours. It can be very empowering, it can also be very debilitating if you don't know your why and if you don't know what you want, because you don't know the choice that you need to take or that you want to take. And so to know it gives you choices in how you want to create that, because you're open. You're open. That is also another beautiful question to continually ask yourself in what you're creating. How do I want to experience it? What do I want to experience in my business? In the relationships that I build? What do I want to experience on social media? Because we get to choose. We get to choose how we experience things. And so that is also another fun and curious place to be. Because if you're not enjoying social media, change your choices and make it fun. If you're not enjoying social media and you don't like the experience there, find another avenue. Create something, an experience that you love. A newsletter, a community group, a blog, a website. Choose the experience that you want to have. Because we have to create time no matter what we choose. If we choose to devote to social media, if we choose to devote to our newsletter, we have to find that time and that energy. So you may as well enjoy it, and it may as well push you further along towards your goal and towards your why. We make it hard on ourselves, and it doesn't have to be. Yes, there'll be ups and downs. Of course there will, because that is life. And there'll be, as I said, cycles of work and play and rest. And there'll be light and shadow, businesses, creating our projects. We can't control how an audience responds. We can choose how we we can't choose how they receive it. We can choose how we respond to perhaps feeling not seen and heard. So we can then go back and ask ourselves, are we proud of that work? Are we just creating that work to just shove out on social media so that there's something there? And then coming back and going, okay, I'm not proud of that work. I'm producing quantity, I'm not producing quality, which is what I want. It's all our choice. Everything is our choice. We choose how we create it. And so to come back to your why, really ask the question, why am I doing it? We're here as humans, as women, for such a finite amount of time. if we choose to create a business, why are we adding another thing to our list, to our to-do list? Why is it important? Why does your heart want to do it? And they're very simple questions, but they're serious questions if you decide you want to create a business or a project. Because knowing deeply about yourself, about your business, you know, the success comes from knowing what you want and why you want it. And it actually fast tracks things because you're not wasting your time trying to decide. You can make decisions quite quickly because you're like, no, that doesn't align with what I'm creating. And you can choose the other thing that does align with moving you towards what you want and why. And think about, what do I want? It's such a powerful question for women to ask themselves. All right, that is 30 minutes. It goes so quickly. I hope that helps. I hope that you spend the time really getting to know why. It can be such a beautiful experience, and we make it so hard. We really do. We make it so hard on ourselves. All right, I'm going to go. Have a beautiful day. See ya. Bye.